Hi, I am Teresa DeBartolabin, and I work for the Oregon Department of Agriculture. Welcome to the virtual online open house for the Campbell Creek Strategic Implementation Area. I am a water quality specialist within the Oregon Department of Agriculture's Water Quality Program. And thank you for joining us today. Will be learning a little bit more about the Campbell Creek Strategic Implementation Area and what this means for you. Once again, welcome to the Campbell Creek Strategic Implementation Area Open House. Under normal circumstances, we would have had an in-person open house and invited you all to come meet with us to discuss more about the Strategic Implementation Area. However, due to COVID restrictions, we are doing mass mailing and as well as a virtual open house recording. And so as part of this recording, I'll be talking a little bit more about the Oregon Department of Agriculture's Water Quality Program. I'll go into more depth of what the Campbell Creek Strategic Implementation Area is and what it means for you, and then we can discuss next steps. The Oregon Department of Agriculture's Water Quality Program began over 20 years ago with Senate Bill 1010. The agricultural community felt it was best to manage water quality at the local level, so we worked with agricultural producers across the state to develop locally based agricultural water quality management plans. This map here shows the 38 management plans across the state. Each plan has its own set of rules, and then we work closely with a local advisory committee to update these area plans twice or every 2 to 4 years. And we work closely with our soil and water conservation districts, SWCDs, to help us implement these management plans. The soil and water conservation districts are non-regulatory, and just wanted to make sure that is clear. They are the local experts and non-regulatory, and they provide technical assistance and conservation planning to landowners within their SWCD boundaries. Also within the water quality program, we have our regular compliance and enforcement program, and I'm going to discuss that here in a few slides. In addition to our regular compliance program, we have our Strategic Implementation Areas Initiative, and that's what I'll be discussing with you guys today. We have our Agricultural Drainage Channel Program, and that's a new program that switched over from the Department of State Lands into the authority of the Oregon Department of Agriculture, that if you're doing any maintenance in seasonally drained channels, that you apply for a authorization from the Oregon Department of Agriculture. And then we also have our Soil and Water Conservation District program. Within each agricultural water quality management area, there are 2 rules that are associated with agricultural activities that could be impacting water quality. The first rule that I'm going to discuss today is the waste rule, and that's essentially stating that your agricultural activities must comply by not polluting ground or surface water, discharging waste into waters of the state, or placing waste where it's likely to enter waters of the state. And waste includes soil, manure, fertilizers, and waters of the state can include ponds, groundwaters, canals, ditches, and rivers. And the other rule that is required in all of the management areas across the state is the streamside vegetation rule, and that just essentially states that your agricultural activities cannot prevent the establishment, growth, and active recruitment of riparian vegetation along our stream banks. When it comes to the 2 rules that I had previously mentioned, ODA's policy is that we do have flexibility for landowners to comply with those rules. Compliance with those rules is only determined when ODA completes a site inspection. We do encourage voluntary conservation first before we use the regulatory approach, and ODA is the only one that can determine compliance. This brings us to our Strategic Implementation Area Initiative, SIA. The SIA Initiative demonstrates compliance with ODA's ag water quality rules that I had previously mentioned. The SIA Initiative is a collaborative partnership across the state. A huge portion of the SIA Initiative is voluntary and incentive-based conservation, but we do have the regulatory backstop as associated with the SIA program. And then in addition to the initiative, we also are monitoring to track the water quality improvements and landscape conditions over time within the SIA. The SIA is a collaborative approach. We work closely with our partners to address water quality concerns. We work with our soil and water conservation districts, watershed councils, landowners, stakeholders, and our federal, state, tribes, and our local agencies. And we work closely and collaboratively to achieve water quality objectives. There are various steps in the SIA process. The first step within selecting a strategic implementation area is having a local planning meeting. And that's where we bring our partners together to select an area to address water quality concerns. And then ODA, we complete an evaluation of agricultural activities that could be impacting water quality. I have a few slides on that, which I'll go more into detail about that evaluation process. Throughout the whole SIA process, which is a 4-year term, we provide technical assistance as well as our local partners, soil and water conservation districts, and our CS provide technical assistance to any landowners that we may have identified as potential water quality concerns, and any other landowners that may be interested in doing voluntary conservation work on their property. In addition, we also monitor water quality improvements throughout the whole SIA process, and that's over a 10-year time span. While all this is going on, ODA does ensure compliance with the ag water quality rules that I mentioned earlier, the waste rule and the riparian rule. And at the end of the SIA process, we do hope that we have improved the water quality conditions in the water column as well as on the landscape. And we have, after ODA completes the evaluation process, we have another partner meeting which discusses the results of the evaluation. And in addition to that, like I stated earlier, under normal circumstances, we would have held an in-person open house. However, due to COVID restrictions, we are doing this virtual recording. And meanwhile, while all these steps in this process is going on, we have landowner engagement going on the entire time. Each SIA comes with technical assistance funding that we provide to the soil and water conservations to assist landowners with conservation planning and project design. The funding also assists with cost share opportunities where they are available. And then in addition to the technical assistance funding, ODA also provides funding for water quality monitoring and landscape conditions. And so we approximately have about $125,000 for each SIA to implement technical assistance and monitoring. The Campbell Creek Strategic Implementation Area was selected by ODA, and ODA will be documenting compliance on all agricultural lands over time within the boundary. The agricultural lands were prioritized based on ag water quality concerns and native fish habitat priorities. Some of the water quality concerns that have been identified is sediment and turbidity within Campbell Creek. We will work where opportunities do exist and align our local partner priorities and their programs, and so we can optimize our results on the ground and within the water column. As I mentioned earlier, each SIA does have a monitoring component with it, and the purpose of the monitoring is to measure changes in water quality as a result of the improved agricultural management practices on the ground. The monitoring is watershed scale based, and we work with our local partners to develop a monitoring plan that will address water quality improvements within each SIA and track it over 10 years. With each strategic implementation area, we do complete a remote and field evaluation, and I'm going to go through that process here with you now. So we have two components of the SIA evaluation, and the first one is the remote evaluation, and that's where ODA looks at publicly available information such as aerial photos, topographic maps, stream maps, and tax lot maps. And in the remote evaluation, we look for agricultural activities that may be impacting water quality. And the next few slides is going to show you a few examples of what we are actually looking for. So As I stated in the previous slide, we are looking for agricultural activities that may be impacting water quality. These activities could be manure piles that are located adjacent to the stream, where they could impact groundwater and or the stream. We also look for lack of streamside vegetation along the stream due to grazing activities, and or we look for bare ground that could be associated next to with agricultural activities next or adjacent to a stream, where there's no vegetation to filter out any of the sediment that could enter back into the creek. So once ODA completes the remote evaluation, we do complete a field evaluation where we confirm what we see on the aerial photo is still consistent to what is on the ground currently. Aerial photos sometimes are several years old, so we want to make sure that the concerns that we identified in the remote evaluation is still consistent to what we see out in the field. And we do this from public viewpoints such as stream crossings, bridges, and the roadside. ODA does not enter private property without permission. Each tax lot that is evaluated during the remote and field evaluation is given an opportunity level, with our lowest concern being our limited opportunity for improvement, where ODA identified no likely ag water quality concerns on the property, all the way up to our highest concern level, which is our potential violation, and this is where ODA visually observed agricultural activities impacting water quality from the field evaluation. So this is where ODA visually observed agricultural activities from the road that could be impacting water quality, such as a manure pile adjacent to the stream or livestock activities such as grazing, where it is impacting the active growth of riparian vegetation. This map here shows all the strategic implementation areas that we have completed or are in the process of since 2014. Currently, we have 43 SIAs so far within the program. We've evaluated 164 watersheds, and that equates to approximately 1.2 million agricultural areas and almost 6,000 agricultural stream miles that we've evaluated. This slide here shows you the evaluation results statewide since 2014. We evaluated approximately 15,000 agricultural tax lots, which equates to the 1.2 million acres that we've evaluated. And as you can see, almost 90% of the tax that we evaluated are in that limited lowest concern level, with a very small percentage, 0.6% of all the evaluated tax lots being our potential violation, our highest concern level. And overall, statewide, I think that really tells a good story that agriculture is already doing its part in protecting water quality, and with most of the tax lots being in that no water quality concern level. And like I said, it just really tells a good story that agriculture is already doing its part across the state to protect water quality. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the results of the Campbell Creek Strategic Implementation Area. This slide here shows you the Campbell Creek SIA boundary. I'm going to pause here for a second so you all have the opportunity to take a closer look of the agricultural lands that are identified within the SIA boundary. These are the results of the Campbell Creek SIA. ODA evaluated 285 tax lots within the SIA boundary, with 218 of the tax lots evaluated being in that limited low no concern level, with only 12 tax lots being potential violations. 16 were labeled as opportunities for improvement, and 39 were identified as low concerns. In addition, some of the agriculture that we identified during the evaluation is seeded and vegetable crops, irrigated crops, dairy, hemp, livestock, hay, and other small farms. Some of the local agricultural concerns that we identified within the boundary are irrigation, water use, and drainage, application and storage of fertilizers, unmanaged livestock access to the stream areas, and soil erosion. In addition to those concerns, ODA also has documented water quality concerns related to stream temperature, bacteria, sediment, and nutrients. Here's contact information for your local soil and water conservation districts, as well as my contact information. Next steps is ODA will be contacting landowners that we identified as potential violations to set up site visits to meet with those landowners to conduct a compliance evaluation and to work with those landowners to improve the conditions on their property. Over the next year, the soil and water conservation districts will be doing outreach to landowners identified in any of the other concern levels. And if you have any conservation work that you're interested in doing on your property that ODA may not have had identified as water quality concerns, you can still outreach to your local districts to work with them to implement any conservation improvements on your property. Once again, thank you for joining our virtual open house. Again, my name is Teresa DeBartoleben. If you have any questions, here is my contact information, and I look forward to hearing from you and working with you all soon. Thanks.